When it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've come to expect some pretty epic visuals and stories. We can thank visual effects for submersing us into our favorite comic book stories.
Thank you.
But just how much money goes into making these magical worlds a reality? Quite a lot, actually. Marvel has several specific scenes that take the cake. Let's dive in and find out which ones. Before we get started, don't forget to swing on over to that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things CBR. We know you want to.
Do me a favor. Try not to burn the house down before Monday.
Okay, so it's Monday. That is good to know. I will plan my toga party accordingly.
A young RDJ. Captain America Civil War was memorable for many reasons, but one of the most impressive uses of special effects is the de-aging of Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark. Most people don't think about how much a scene like this might cost. They'll think about Giant Man and the airport battle, both of which are insanely expensive, but turning Robert Downey Jr. into 1991 era Downey is not cheap by any means. According to the VFX artists, the hardest thing about this shot is actually how long it is. It's a lengthy sequence designed to look like one take. All of the focus is on young Robert Downey Jr. in the foreground, so he needs to look really good and believable. And boy did he ever. This is a technique that Marvel's used in several films, from a younger Michael Douglas in Ant-Man, to an older Haley Atwell in Ant-Man and Winter Soldier, to the very recent young version of Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We are extremely impressed by how real they look. However, young Downey might still be the best example, given the attention to detail and the fact that it still looks authentic when sharing the scene with the real Robert Downey Jr.
Is that the best you can do?
You had to ask.
Final battle in Avengers Age of Ultron. The final fight in Age of Ultron pulls no punches, mostly because it's one of the most expensive Marvel movies to date. Fun fact, the Avengers films in general cost way more than the solo entries. Granted, a huge chunk of that goes to the ensemble cast, but they also have a bigger focus on large-scale action. When the Avengers get together, they need to feel like they have a reason to get together, which this movie accomplishes. There are over 3,000 VFX shots in this film, which was more than any other Marvel Studios feature when it was first released. Can you believe that?
No.
The final battle goes for all of the astonishing wonder and high stakes that it could possibly muster. The Avengers, along with their newest members Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, all three of whom require complicated special effects of their own, face off against Ultron and his never-ending swarm of robot doubles atop a floating Eastern European city. That sounds complicated enough. Now imagine having to make it all look believable. While many fans have mixed reactions to the movie itself, there's no question that it genuinely feels like a big team-up event.
That wasn't so bad.
That was penicillin.
Skinny Captain America. The de-aging of Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War was impressive, but let's go back to the first Captain America movie. For nearly the first hour of Captain America: The First Avenger, Steve Rogers is a composite CGI live-action creation. Filmed with both Chris Evans and a stand-in body double, it results in a much scrawnier Steve to make his transformation into a super hunk all the more drastic. While the creation of Skinny Steve has been the butt of some jokes since the movie came out, it looks believable enough to make the transformation work. It also looks a lot more believable in its few appearances in Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but that might be because it's brief. Either way, despite all the Indiana Jones-style action in Cap's underrated debut theatrical feature, it's the skinny Steve Rogers that winds up being one of the most complicated, expensive things to pull off in the entire film, and it was totally worth it.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
You've come to die.
Final battle in Doctor Strange. Although Doctor Strange's cinematic debut had a predictable plot, we thoroughly enjoyed the action sequences and complex visuals. We were mesmerized by the beautiful kaleidoscope effects and how impossibly real it all felt. Doctor Strange does the impossible, appropriately enough, by giving us a final fight that we've genuinely never seen in a superhero movie before. Strange and Mordo arrive to stop Caecilius from opening a portal to the Dark Dimension, but they're too late. Strange uses the Eye of Agamotto to reverse time so that they're able to fight off Dormammu's followers while the world is moving backwards around them and fixing itself. Instead of dodging exploding buildings, they're dodging rubble flying up through the air and cars frantically driving backwards. It's one of the most impressive effects in recent memory. It was also this scene that got Scott Derrickson the job directing Doctor Strange. He pitched the film to Marvel by taking them through this scene in particular. They were clearly impressed enough to put their faith in someone who had never done a movie of this caliber before. Once again, they managed to prove that they know how to pick the right director for the right project. Good going, Marvel.
You have your own planet?
But no larger than your Earth's moon.
Humility. I like it. I too am extraordinarily humble.
Ego's Planet. While there's a ton of CGI in both Guardians of the Galaxy films, there are also an impressive amount of practical effects as well, which is one of the many reasons we love Guardians so much. However, when it came to introducing Ego's living planet in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it became a whole new ballgame. Or a whole new world if you want to get more specific. This entire planet is a character. It's actually alive, so it has to look unlike anything that's been seen in this franchise before. Director James Gunn even calls Ego's Planet the biggest visual effect of all time. He explains, "We have over 1 trillion polygons on Ego's Planet. There's nothing even close to it," which is cool. We think so too, James Gunn.
You know what I'm talking about.
On screen, it works amazingly well. The planet looks exactly like the too good to be true paradise that it obviously turns out to be. It's all thanks to the amazingly complex VFX work and the team that helps pull that off. Multi-dimensional fight in Thor: The Dark World. Okay, bear with us here. We know how many people feel about the second chapter in the Thor solo series, but how lovable is Thor? Well, in terms of special effects, there isn't too much to talk about. Other than an exciting siege on Asgard, there's not a lot of insane CGI work in Thor: The Dark World. It's considered to be one of, if not the weakest entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. However, that doesn't mean it doesn't have anything going for it. Even if Malekith the Accursed is a less than stellar villain, the fight scene at the end is pretty amazing. Thor faces off against Malekith just as the realms are starting to converge, so they fight from dimension to dimension with Mjolnir racing to catch up. This scene is visually stunning, exciting, drops a few Easter eggs, and packs in some genuine humor all at the same time. While it might not be the most beloved film in the MCU canon, this sequence kind of represents everything that's fun about the MCU all at once. It's at the very least an underrated battle, even if the overall feature does have its problems.
We are not your enemies, Banner. Try to think!
Helicarrier Hulk out in the Avengers. Do you remember being excited for the first Avengers film? Well, if you remember the film, Avengers spends a lot of its running time building toward this now iconic scene. At the beginning of the movie, Bruce Banner's been without an incident for a while, possibly since the end of The Incredible Hulk. Obviously, audiences know going into it that his winning streak is not going to last very long, but we were rooting for him. However, we are anxiously awaiting for him to snap. Ow!
Nothing?
Every time he's on screen, it becomes a question of when he's going to Hulk out again. In typical Joss Whedon tradition, when the moment finally comes, it comes at the worst possible time. Banner transforms into the Hulk while the Helicarrier is already under siege from Loki and his mind-controlled soldiers, including Hawkeye. Black Widow's trapped alone with Banner when the transformation happens. It's exactly what the fans wanted. This Hulk is an impressive, more expensive motion capture performance than previous films had the chance to do, and the fact that it culminates in a fight between Hulk and Thor is just icing on the cake.
I'm sorry.
Hulk and Iron Man in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Another film that's been even more expensive than the first Avengers film is, of course, its sequel. So naturally, one of the most memorable scenes from this ridiculously expensive movie is bound to make the list. It has to be one of the biggest, most memorable sequences in the MCU to date. It's something fans had wanted to see as soon as the Avengers was announced. Many were even expecting to see Hulkbuster armor in Iron Man 3. Instead, we got it in this movie, and it was completely worth the wait. It works not only only because it's an amazing visual effects scene, but mostly because the relationship between Stark and Banner is clearly established by this point. They're friends, they relate immensely to one another, and that makes the fight between them bittersweet. It's also a knockdown, drag-out action scene though. This is a huge fight, as is to be expected between two huge combatants. Hulk is even more out of control than usual, so Stark has to do whatever it takes to bring him down. They throw each other through buildings, heck, they even level buildings over the course of this fight, and it all looks so epically real. Airport fight, Captain America Civil War. Feel free to disagree with us, friends, but we're going to go ahead and put this out there. The airport fight in Captain America Civil War has to be the best all-out fight scene in the entire MCU to date. It's the biggest and the most dramatic, it has virtually everything. It goes on so long, but never outstays its welcome. In this one scene, we see Avengers fighting each other, we see Spider-Man in the midst of the action, and we see Ant-Man riding one of Hawkeye's arrows. It should come off feeling like nothing more than glorified fan service, but it functions amazingly well. Much of that has to do with the insanely strong VFX, which look and feel real and bring the appropriate weight to the situation. Civil War became a much more expensive movie when Robert Downey Jr. and the rest of the Avengers cast were brought on board. That ballooned the budget just in terms of casting, and it took some convincing to get Marvel to sign off on it. However, when they did, it allowed for huge, elaborate sets like this one and of course some wicked effects. One-take epic hero shot. Even now, this might be the most iconic shot in the 9-year history of the MCU. This is what all of Phase 1 has been building toward. This is a scene designed to look like a single shot with all of the Avengers fighting in unison at once. It still gives us chills. It doesn't look any bigger than the rest of the fights in the third act, or even as dramatic. However, this one shot actually took a lot to pull off. First, it's got the Hulk taking down a giant Chitauri Leviathan, and it's got everyone working together. But obviously, it's not actually one take. The thing that makes this shot so much more complicated, though, is that it moves from Avenger to Avenger in what appears to be a single fluid motion, with the camera circling around the entire team. That's a lot more complicated than you would think. While it's a seamless shot on screen, it's made up of a lot of moving pieces. Even that supposedly seamless fluidity has to be rendered in post. The finished effect is one of the most stunning scenes in any superhero movie to date, all the while showcasing just how much great VFX can add to an already impressive story when it's done right.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.
Well, there you have it, folks. Those were some of the most expensive and impressive CGI moments in the MCU. Which were your favorite? Are there any we missed? What did you think? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and share and check out more awesome videos on our playlist. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.